Welcome into NBA Now by Chat Sports. Jeffrey Cooperstein here. Hope everyone is enjoying their week so far. We have the latest NBA trade rumors for you guys on today's show, and we are going to start with the story of what seems to be the season, and that's the Dallas Mavericks, and that's the Anthony Davis trade rumors that have been persisting. But the latest rumors and rumblings out of Dallas is that the Mavericks could be keeping Anthony Davis. According to Mark Cuban, Mavericks minority owner, who was the majority owner, sold the team and now still owns 27%, is back at the decision-making table after the Mavericks fired Nico Harrison, says the Mavericks currently have no plans to trade Anthony Davis. The direct quote that he told The Athletic was, "We won't. We want to try to win." Well, Mark, I have bad news for you. The Mavericks aren't going to win this year at all, as they only have 4 wins on the season. Lost last night in a heartbreaker to the New York Knicks, and this team is going nowhere fast this season. The Mavericks absolutely should be open to trading Anthony Davis, and we'll discuss all of that here in just a moment. But I want you guys to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you want more NBA content from us here at Chat Sports, prove it. Subscribe to the channel at Chat Sports TV. We're covering all of the latest NBA news and rumors. We're going to do trade rumors. We'll be live for the NBA trade deadline. We'll be doing NBA draft coverage as well. So stay locked in because we are your one-stop shop for all things NBA right here at NBA Now. I kind of alluded to this earlier. I'm not sure I believe Mark Cuban here. I understand that he has to come out and defend Anthony Davis and say that we're not going to trade him. He's our guy and this and that, because you just can't come out and flat out say, yeah, we're trying to trade AD, especially when he is part of the in-the-know decision-making process for the Dallas Mavericks. They're not just going to come out and throw him under the bus, but of course the Mavericks are going to be looking at trading Anthony Davis. And look, AD this season in 5 games, been okay, for his standards. If you look at these stats, you're like, wow, this guy's a really, really good player. But we all know what Anthony Davis is capable of, and these numbers are pretty ordinary when it comes to Anthony Davis. But, it all comes back to the fact that he just can't stay healthy, and he's limited to just 5 games this season. He's been sidelined since that game against the Indiana Pacers on October 29th and has not played since. Last week, he was ruled out for another 7 to 10 days. So at the start of next week, we might hear an update that he could return to action here rather soon. But the Mavericks aren't going to clear AD to play until the Mavs medical staff greenlights it to Mavericks owner Patrick Dumont, and he greenlights AD coming back to action. So we're at least another 5, 6, maybe 7 days before Anthony Davis ends up returning to the basketball court. And Tim McMahon had this on AD's trade market, and basically it's uncertain what the trade market value is for Davis because of his durability issues. He is still a dominant force on both ends of the floor when healthy, but league sources told McMahon that they're adamant gauging the market over the upcoming months is due diligence that the Mavericks must undertake. So with all of the reports that the Mavericks need to do their due diligence, they're going to do their due diligence, Cuban coming out and saying we're not going to trade AD because we're going to try to win just doesn't really make sense. Now, maybe they're saying that they're going to try and win it next season and the season after that when AD is still under contract, but let's be honest with ourselves. They're not winning this year, so the Mavericks absolutely have a decision to make. And another reason why I think Cuban may not really be telling the truth on this whole matter about the Mavericks not wanting to trade AD, Cuban is 5th in line when it comes to the decision-making process for the Dallas Mavericks. Patrick Dumont, obviously the majority owner and governor of the Mavs, is number 1. You have your co-interim general managers and Michael Finley and Matt Riccardi at 2A and 2B. And Jason Kidd is part of the brain trust as well as the head coach. So while Cuban is at the table, he's really a glorified consultant at this point in time. He obviously wants what's best for the Mavericks. He has been the Mavericks owner since 2000. He's been involved. He loves the franchise and wants what's best for it. But at the end of the day, he is not making the decisions. Patrick Dumont, the Mavericks owner, is going to be the one that makes the final call on whether or not, number 1, Anthony Davis returns to action from that cap strain, and number 2, whether or not the Mavericks trade AD. Look, we all know what a cap strain means. That can lead to the big A, the torn Achilles. The Mavericks want to make certain that AD is not at risk of re-aggravation so he can come back, play a stretch of games, and hopefully string some games together, build up that trade value to where maybe in February, the Mavericks can revisit this and maybe move AD to a contender at the trade deadline when the time comes. So we'll see what happens, but I think it would be just a bad idea if the Mavericks did not at least explore trading Anthony Davis. I want you guys to take a guess, though. This will be today's pin question, so it'll be at the top of the comment section. Will the Mavs trade AD this season? Type Y for yes or type N for no. Let me know what you guys think the Mavericks are going to end up doing. Look, man, I think it's an easy decision for the Mavs. I think it should absolutely be a trade, but you guys let me know down in the comments. Some other Mavs trade candidates include Klay Thompson, who is in the second year of his 3-year deal, although Klay has just not been able to shoot the ball well at all this season. Daniel Gafford, fresh off a 3-year, $54 million extension, so he'll be making $18 million each of the next 3 seasons. Really like Gafford. He's a high-energy, high-effort player who can protect the rim and who can be a good pick-and-roll player on the offensive end as well, a great finisher around the rim. I think a contending team could do a lot worse than acquiring Daniel Gafford for the next 3 years. And Najee Marshall, who is under contract for the next year and a half at around $9 million a year as well. Really like Najee. The nickname is the Knife, because he can do a bunch of different things on the court. He can handle the ball, he can run within the flow of the offense, and he can defend both on the perimeter and inside as well. Really like all 3 of these players. So not only Anthony Davis, but keep an eye on those 3 as well for potential trade candidates for the Dallas Mavericks going forward. We'll get to the rest of today's show here in just a moment, but today's show is sponsored by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every single day, but being right on PrizePicks, that can get you paid. Don't miss on any of the action this basketball season over at PrizePicks, where it is good to be right. One of my favorite things on PrizePicks right now is they offer stacks, meaning you can put the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup, and it's super easy to play. All you do is pick more or less on at least 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you can watch the winnings roll in. Look, here's my projection. We have a season-long basketball projection for you guys. I took the more on Brandon Miller points per game average. He hasn't played. He's been injured. Also, Dylan Harper has been injured as well, and I took the less on his points per game average. I took the more on Luka Doncic points per game average as well at 29.1. He is going to smash that more. You can copy my picks or make picks of your own. Just please make sure you do it with our friends over at PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. One more time, that is code CLNS to get $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. That link will be in the comments and description of today's show. PrizePicks, it is good to be right. Transitioning away from the Dallas Mavericks to the latest guard trade rumors, and there are a few guards that we need to talk about. ESPN's Brian Windhorst put together a list of guards that could potentially be on the trade market here in the coming weeks and months, and I think there's interesting names on there, so we'll talk about them. Here's what Windhorst had to say. He goes, if you're asking me between Ja Morant, Trae Young, and LaMelo Ball, who, if they all came onto the trade market tomorrow, he says LaMelo would have the best market, but that's all hypothetical right now. Well, let's play this hypothetical here, and I'm going to disagree with Mr. Windhorst here. I would actually put Trae Young at number 1 on my top rankings of these 3 guys here. I think Trae has the most value out of these 3 for a couple of reasons. Number 1, I think he is the player that, if you're on a winning basketball team, would be the one that you would like to acquire the most. I think he helps a team win more than LaMelo Ball, more than Ja Morant. Now, Trae's contract might tell you a different story because he does have a player option for next season and could potentially hit free agency this summer. So you would have to weigh that as far as his actual trade value goes. But I think the value to any other team, I do think Trae is the highest on that list. Now, he is dealing with the sprained MCL, but he is expected to be back in the next week or 2. He was ruled out for 4 weeks, and that was at the end of October. So he should be back here in the next week or 2 from that injury. And look, I'm not the biggest Trae Young fan in the world, like I'll fully admit it, but out of these guys, I do think he is the best one out there for a contending team if they're looking to upgrade at the guard spot. You can see the numbers on your screen right now. He's one of the best assist men in the league, averaging double-digit assists each of the last 3 seasons. He's a sniper from 3 as well, although last year didn't shoot great from 3, right around league average at 34%, but you're looking at a guy who plays a very heliocentric style, has a high usage rate, has the ball in his hands a lot, and he's a guy that maybe if a team is looking for a number 2 or number 3 scoring option, as well as a playmaker, you could find that in Trae Young. Now, he's only played in just 5 games this season where he's averaged 17.8 points and 7.8 assists. He hasn't shot it very well from 3 this year in his 5 games either, but again, very small sample size we're talking about here at just 5 games. And when he comes back in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully he can stay healthy throughout the rest of the season, he can build that trade value up. And I do think that Atlanta could get something pretty significant for him. Now, he is on a potentially expiring contract where he's making almost $46 million this year, but he does have a player option next season for $48.9 million. The question is whether or not he'll exercise that option or he'll hit free agency this summer. I'm really not too entirely sure what the free agency market will look like for Trae Young. Like, I'm sure he'll have suitors in free agency, and you can always execute a sign and trade for a team that is over the cap, so I don't think that would be a problem. But I do think that maybe he might be best suited to exercise that player option and play on that final year of his deal. Now, if there were some destinations for Trae to be traded to this season, I would say the Dallas Mavericks, Minnesota Timberwolves, and Houston Rockets are all teams to watch. The Rockets really need a point guard after Fred VanVleet is out for the year with that torn ACL. We all know about the Mavericks' playmaking ability or lack thereof. They could desperately use a guard like Trae Young, and the Minnesota Timberwolves as well to pair him alongside Anthony Edwards. That could be something I would be interested in watching for damn sure. If one of these three teams could possibly do it, but you guys let me know. Who should trade for Trae Young? Do you think it should be one of the three teams I just previously mentioned? Is it a team that hasn't been mentioned at all? Let me know down in the comments who should trade for Trae Young. It'll be an interesting thing to see whether or not Trae gets moved, but I'll tell you this. Maybe nobody trades for Trae because the Hawks are fifth in the Eastern Conference right now. Like, they're a pretty good ball club with Trae as it is. So I could see them riding out the rest of this season, potentially next season if Young does exercise that player option. And they could see what they can do in the postseason this year. They're a much improved team. They're a young team. You have Jalen Johnson, who is one of the most improved players in the league. Zachary Risachet. Like, they have a lot of young, solid pieces to go alongside Trae. And maybe they just decide to play it out this year and risk letting him walk in free agency. Although that'd be a big risk because you're losing your franchise player for absolutely nothing. Look, I'm not sure Trae can be a number one option on a team that can win a title. Could he be a number two or a number three, though? I absolutely do think they could do that. Now, what about LaMelo Ball, who Brian Windhorst thinks has the biggest value of all three of those guys? The numbers look good for LaMelo. Like, I won't lie. They do look good. I just don't know if he's conducive to winning. Like, I don't think he is a winning basketball player. I'm not sure you want this guy on your team if you are serious about being a perennial contender in the NBA. The numbers do look good. I mean, he's averaging 21.6 points, almost 10 assists a night, 7 boards as well. He's filling up the stat sheet, but that efficiency is just ugly. I mean, 38.5% from the field and 29.8% from three. You just have to be better than that if you're LaMelo Ball. And the thing is about that is he can be better than that. And I don't know anything. I'm not inside the Hornets organization, but it just feels like that he just is a little lackadaisical when it comes to his play. And I think that if he just tightened things up, was more serious about basketball, he could be a perennial all-star in this league. I really do believe that. And boy, let me tell you this contract right here scares the living hell out of me. He's making $37.9 million this year, $40.7 the year after that, and then $43 and $46 the 2 years after that. I mean, it is just a contract that you better believe that you are getting LaMelo Ball in his absolute prime, in tip-top shape, and a guy who is focusing on basketball and is ready to go once you trade for him. Because if you don't, this could end up being a pretty terrible investment if you are a team trading for LaMelo Ball. That's what scares me about him personally. And Ja Morant, I mean, it speaks for itself. We know about all of the off-court issues that Ja has. He got into a public fight with his coach this year and got himself suspended for one game. He's been suspended for like over 30 games in his career. If I'm an NBA team trying to win, Ja Morant's not the guy I'm trading for, and I think that's just pretty plain and simple there. I'll ask you guys, though, before we get on out of here, trade for one of these guys. If you would trade for Trae Young type 1, if you trade for LaMelo Ball type 2, or if you would pull the trigger and trade for Ja Morant, go type 3 down below. Again, I'd be avoiding Ja Morant at all costs. I think Trae Young would be my guy from this list. That will do it for today's show, guys. Appreciate you for tuning into NBA Now by Chat Sports. As always, hit that subscribe button at youtube.com/chatsportstv, and we'll have you covered with all of the latest NBA news and rumors, NBA draft rumors, and all of that stuff all throughout the 2025-26 NBA season.